So we're continuing and meet Irakli Vekua, who is the CEO of Loopy AI and co-founder at Kings.
And he will be talking how to scale Georgian company to Europe. And he will share all his successes, how he made to European market, and also mistakes, because there is always some mistakes.
Please.
Hello, nice to meet you. It's a pleasure to presenting here after a very interesting talk before me about why we shouldn't get the education, or in a normal way probably. So let me call me Irakli, and let me start from the beginning. Actually, I have a kind of mathematical background. As a child, I was participating in educational competitions, and literally changed my life, because that was the reason I was offered to join one of the once again, I guess I should start from beginning. Yeah. I mentioned as a child, I was participating in educational competitions, and it changed my life, because that was the reason I was offered to join one of the best schools in Georgia. And that's really changed my life. But back then, there were about 30,000 pupils interested in educational competitions, so-called Olympiads. And when I started to participate in this kind of competitions, I was 12 years old. And when I finished the school, already like 7 years after, everything remained the same, which was quite strange for me, because everything else was changing around us. So there were no online registration for competitions. Checking of the tests were manual. There was like 1 month needed to get the results of your tests, etc. So as a student, my friends and I saw that we can do something differently, and did some small student project. We organized a competition in one of the regions of Georgia, in Mereti. And as we got some traction, we thought that we should focus on that. And that's why in 2012, we started Kings, which was organizing educational competitions throughout Georgia. We were the first to introduce online registration for competitions. We were the first to introduce computer-based checking of tests. It appears that we did many right things, rather than not all these ones. And in 3 years, market grew 5 times. So in 2015, already 150,000 pupils were participating in competitions in Georgia, which is almost every fourth child here. And more than 70% of the market was served by our company. So we already had the monetized product with more than 120,000 paying customers per year. And that's when we thought that maybe we can do it not only in Georgia, but in other countries. First, we thought about Armenia and Azerbaijan, as they were neighboring countries, and we thought that it would be easy to move our product there. But then we decided to directly focus on European Union market. And in 2015, personally, I moved to Estonia, which we thought was the great market for testing the product and our assumptions, because population is quite small, 1.3 million. And there's a very advanced startup ecosystem. So we thought that it would help us to find the right contacts and test our assumptions about organizing the competitions there. In just a couple of months, I already had some good connections in Estonian startup ecosystem. And I asked my already friends there to introduce me to some young people who would have some entrepreneurial mind already tried to do something and probably failed. So it was quite interesting approach to search for people who already failed. But in my opinion, they would be eager to join some new venture, and maybe if the lack of experience or something else was the reason for their failure beforehand, maybe they would find success with us. So we find two great guys, Ken and Merton, there, and yeah, already in start of 2015, we organized very small project to just test just general assumptions we had. And in March, we organized first King's event in Estonia, which was bilingual actually, because almost half of our participants were Russian speakers, because 25% of Estonian population has the Russian background. So it wasn't like easiest thing to do. So we already had some challenges to test what we wanted to test. And as already the first project was a success, we got more than 2,000 paying customers there who paid 10 euros actually for participation. And actually it was 5 times more than say we used to pay before our competitions we organized there. We thought that we are on the right path, and we continue to organize competitions in Estonia, but most importantly, we prepared the plan to enter the new market, Lithuanian market, which already wasn't the testing market for us, but rather we wanted to have already the business there. So we had a plan to organize the first event in 6 weeks, which we actually achieved. Actually, it took 5 weeks for us to organize the first event there. We find a local partner who's actually almost the same approach as we did in Estonia. And in first year, with our common approach, I mean, we are doing the same thing in Lithuania as we did in Estonia, or we are doing in Georgia. So we are organizing the physical events outside of the school on Sundays. We got a couple of thousand participants. NPS, Net Promoter Score, was quite high, so participants really liked what we did. But when we dig into what was happening there, it was interesting that there were already established behavior from Lithuanian consumers, like parents and pupils. So they were used to participate in this kind of competitions, but not on Sundays, but during the school days and in school. So what we did is that we made a decision to pivot from our original approach and organized the first free competitions at schools, which wasn't even the one day for every school. And our monetization was that if people would pass the first stage, which we organized at schools, we were asking them to participate in the final round, which was already organized outside of the schools on Sundays and was paid. This approach turned to be successful. And even today, we have from a couple of thousand students we had in Lithuania, we right now have more than 60,000 participants per year in Lithuania as well. So it was like important achievements for us. Estonia and Lithuania were the like small countries, almost like in the scale of Georgia. And our next challenge was to do it in a much bigger scale. So that's what we did when we moved to Poland in 2017. Population of Poland is more than 38 million, 38. So yeah, we thought that we should start in a couple of cities. We decided about 6 major cities: Warsaw, Krakow, Wrocław, Łódź, Poznan, and Gdańsk, and tried to test our approach and product there. Actually, there were a couple of competitors already, quite established ones, with hundreds of thousands of participants. And the average participation fee for this kind of competitions were 9 zlotys, which is about 2 euros. So we thought that we should do something differently. Yeah, first of all, we focused on creating much bigger value than what the competition was already offering. And because of that, we increased the price quite dramatically, like 5 times. So if participation fee for other competitions were about 9 zlotys, our participation fee was 37 zlotys. Even on the first organized competition in Poland, we attracted more than 2,000 paying participants, which was more than we expected. So we concluded that it was a successful testing for us. And luckily, we were approached by the, well, not one, but biggest venture capital company in Central and Eastern Europe, which is Polish one, actually. And they offered us financing for scaling up this project in Poland. And do the project, organize the project not only in 6 cities, but in 90 cities, because Poland is quite urbanized country. All of these 90 cities have more than 50,000 of population. And actually in Georgia, we were already doing the competition in 33 cities in Georgia. As you know, Georgia is much, much smaller. We are doing and organizing competitions in much smaller cities and with population of 50,000. So it was quite a reasonable one. But it demanded from us important investments time-wise, because our competitions had the physical presence as well. We were organizing physical events. This plan to organize this competition in 90 cities in Poland was like 2-year plan. And as we already had started some investments in educational technology, and we were very interested in it, we decided that maybe we should focus on that part. And when we got offer from private investors to sell the company in 2018, we did so. We already had back then 150,000 paying customers, more than 80 full-time employees. So it was not a startup, but an established company. And as we saw that it was right time to leave the business, and also we were maintaining some minority stake in Kings, we made this decision and exited from Kings. And I'm happy that Kings is still flourishing, and more people are involved in competitions and other projects of Kings. So during this journey with Kings, we had connections with thousands of teachers and schools, and we were quite close to the problems they were facing. One of the major problems we thought they were facing was that teachers were spending up to 7 hours per week on preparing and processing student work. I mean, homeworks, assignments, etc. Because mostly it's where it was done by pen and paper. Actually, in all of these countries, even Estonia, which is very digitalized country, teachers were used to send do the assignments for send the assignment to pupils by pen and paper. So we thought that creating the digital solution where teachers would create, manage, and grade homework while we would gather data and based on this data, we would send them the actionable recommendations. Might be the right approach. Also, students who already had access to digital gadgets would do the homework on them. And this gathered data would help teachers and students as well, as they could also work on their knowledge gaps independently in our solution. So in 2009, important is that this digital solution would save a huge amount of time for teachers. This 7 hours per week spent by them on preparing and processing student work could get down to half hour, which is 15% of all teachers' time on their job, which is up to 26 hours per month saved by teachers. So as Skink was a fully bootstrapped company from the start, we said that we should have different approach in case of this startup, which the name of the startup is Loopy AI. So we invested our own money, got it from the previous exit. Also participated in JITA, Georgian Innovation and Technology Agency competition, and got the grant from them. And actually, it was in September of 2019. And same month, we were approached by the Rockstart Accelerator from Netherlands. And from hundreds of startups, we were selected in top 10, got some funding from Rockstart Accelerator, and opportunity to scale the project into European Union from Dutch market, actually. So it was importantly different approach because, as I mentioned, Kings was bootstrapped company. Loopy AI is a funded company, and we were not focused on monetizing the product right away, rather than creating the right first the product and monetize it when we thought it would be the right time for that. From October of 2019, we were working on our project. We are thinking about Georgia as our test market. And mainly we were focused on Dutch market to start Loopy AI and offer our solution to Dutch teachers. As already we had the solution ready for Dutch market, and we already had some pilot schools testing our product in Georgia. In March of 2020, coronavirus pandemic changed our plans. Me and my co-founders were planning to move to Netherlands from May, actually. When I got back actually from Netherlands in March, I was forced to do the quarantine, mandatory quarantine, 2-week quarantine. And during these days, Ministry of Education of Georgia announced that they are planning to do the lessons through the television. So like project name was TV School. And we thought that, okay, they will do this televised lessons, but there should be some tool for them to send and mark homeworks. So we got domains at the end of March, and in 10 days, in 10th of April, we launched a little bit modified version of our under the domain of tvschool.g. We launched it on 10th of April in Georgia. It went viral, really viral. And as you can see on this graph, right now we have more than 40,000 teachers using tvschool.g, which is more than 2/3 of all the teachers in Georgia, and there are more than 130,000 pupils doing the homeworks in tvschool.g. So if our initial plan was to just have a couple of schools and dozens of teachers in Georgia just to make sure that we had the testing field for our new features, etc. Yeah, it's already successful project, which can be monetized here in Georgia as well. So yeah, once again, it has changed our plans. We already have some offers actually to sell the project here in Georgia. If we are still considering that actually, and if we will decide before the 10th of June, yeah, it will be the exit from the project under 2 months. Let's see how it goes. So for us, plans are to scale this project not only in Georgia and in Netherlands, where we launched actually this week, but in Poland and Lithuania, because we already know these markets. And there are very interesting markets for us in Asia, like Pakistan, Bangladesh, and some regions of India. As we had a couple quite comfortable runway, we were not considering to fundraise before the end of the year. But as I mentioned, our plans has changed, and probably we will work on fundraising in Q3 of 2020. Important point I want to underline is that it was different approaches in case of Kings and in case of Loopy AI, how we thought about scaling the company from Georgia outside, from Georgia to European Union markets. But main thing was to find the right people, to really start working with them as soon as possible. In Estonia and Lithuania, we had really young people working with us to start projects. And one of the reasons why we selected and worked with young people was that all of our team was quite young. We never worked with older than us people. So yeah, it would be a new challenge for us. And main reason was that we didn't have enough funds to hire already experienced people. So I'm not convinced that starting and finding the young people, non-experienced one, is the best solution, but it can work. But if there are funds available, then people who already have some connections in the domain you're working might be the right approach as well. Most important lesson we learned from this journey was that first we were trying to scale up the company, which wasn't fully scalable. I mean, it was digital solution for sure, but Kings also had the physical presence. So even if you had hundreds of thousands of participants online, still you were forced to organize physical event for them to really offer the whole benefits of the product. So it really was the burden to scale it up quickly in different countries. And business-wise, it wasn't an easy decision to decline the offer from Polish VC to scale up the King's project in Poland, because it had all the chances to be the successful business there, but we would stay there for 2 years with full focus on Polish market. So couple of years for each country isn't a scalable product for us, for sure. So that's why we then focused on EdTech, which is really, really easily scalable. And yeah, even here in our case, as I mentioned, we launched the product in Georgia on 10th of April. And in just under 2 months, we launched the same product in Dutch market as well. And actually, we will launch in 3 new countries during the June. So it is fully digital. It's really easy to scale it up, and scalability should be one of the main things to consider. And the final thing to consider for me is to bootstrap the company or go with the funding approach. But it's not the really choice for every, especially Georgian founder. When we started Kings, first of all, things were different in Georgia. There was not, for example, Georgian Innovation and Technology Agency grants. There were not even mentors to get some lessons and feedback from them. So even if we would love to have the funding approach, it won't work probably. And even today, if you are the first-time founder, it won't be easy to start with funding approach. So what I mean is that maybe you can get JITA grant or some other small grants or fundings, maybe even from small investors, like from angel investors in Georgia, but it's really small amounts of money. While for scaling up to European markets, you really will need money to invest and to get some funding from outside sources. I mean, like established VCs in Western Europe or even Eastern Europe. You would need some back story behind you, maybe not success story, but some startup experience, because it really underlines that you already tried to do something, which is important signal for future investors. So yeah, just to summarize, if you really want to scale it up, first thing is to think as testing market, think about Georgia as a testing market. I learned it actually in Estonia, because Estonia is a very small country, and all of Estonian founders are looking on native market as just testing one. So even from first day, they are thinking about accelerating their project and expanding it outside of Estonia, and just getting their feedback and test the product on native market. I think that's the right approach for Georgia as well. Scalability, as I mentioned, is very important. So scalable products really make difference. And yeah, bootstrapping, if it's possible, can be right approach. But if it's not, then getting some traction as soon as possible and trying to get some maybe acceleration in some European accelerators. There are some already opportunities here in Georgia, might be the right approach as well. So thank you for your attention. And yeah, if there are some questions, I am ready to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we have some questions.
First one is, how old were you when your first company generated money? Let's talk about it. Share your memories.
Sure. I was 21. So as I mentioned, we did the first project as a students with my friends. And yeah, right away it was like we asked money from our customers. So it was the first generated money. I remember actually quite clearly about that. We organized the first competition in mathematics in Emirati, 12 cities of Emirati, and the participation fee was 10 laris, and there were 1,624 participants who paid 10 laris. So I remember it clearly. Yeah.
That would have been amazing.
Sure,
We have
of course.
another question. Do you think that it makes sense to encourage students to start their own company, or should they firstly gain some knowledge and industry expertise and maybe work in other startups to learn how the business works?
Okay, so that's a very good question. In my case, yeah, we started right away to do some like business stuff, but I really think that I learned on my mistakes, and it was not pleasant, let's say so. And if there's some opportunity to join some startup, but it can be really, really beneficial. But important thing here is to work for the right person. So what I mean is that mentorship is really important in my opinion. And if the founder of the startup, or maybe some like there can be like big company who has some like department with right person as a head of that, like working for the right mentor who is directly your manager is really beneficial, and gaining some first experience from some established or person who already have some connections and domain expertise. I think that it's really much better approach and saves a couple of years and hundreds of mistakes, which you probably will make if you will start your own.
Thank you.
To follow this question, during your talk, you mentioned about connecting to good people and good partners. Like,
yes.
What is the trait that you share with your partners from all over the world? Because you had some international partners.
Can you repeat the last part of the question?
Yes, because I think your internet connection is not great because you're lagging from time to time. So I'm interested in if there is any common trait or direction or experience that you are connecting based on those things, like what you consider when you are approaching to a new partner or want to collaborate with other startups or companies in general.
Okay. Honestly, like being smart is very important, but yeah, I know that it's very vague to say so. So what I learned from experience is that people who are really smart, they can clearly understand questions and answer them quite shortly. So what I mean is that people who are really direct and answering the questions directly are really smart ones. So when I'm looking at some new people or some future partners maybe, and I see this skill in them, I really think that they are smart, and this never disappointed me actually. So yeah, that's what I am looking for.
I guess this is an answer to the question, is all your team based on Georgian and how do you hire?
No, we don't. We have offices in Vilnius as well, in Lithuania. And during our time in Poland, we had offices in Warsaw and in Wrocław. Right now we have, it was like for Kings. Kings right now has offices in Tbilisi and in Vilnius, as I mentioned. While for Loopy AI, we have office in Tbilisi for sure, and we had, before the coronavirus, office in Den Bosch in Netherlands as well. So after this pandemic ends, yeah, probably we'll get back our footprint on Dutch land. And the second question was how do I hire?
Yes.
It's not easy question because I don't think that I know enough to advise some others about that because I'm still learning how to hire right people, in my opinion. One of the advices I got about that is that having the children as soon as possible might be the right approach. So what I mean is that person who only works for just attracting the new talents, yeah, it can be right approach if you have funds, if we can afford that for sure. And another thing is that in a startup, I am like almost sure that all the hires you are making, even some like not very important, if there can be someone like that in a startup, all this like people should be hired by CEO or founders. So what I mean is that all the first hires are dramatically important for the future of the startup. They're almost like the co-founders. So there should be some chemistry with them. And one of the things which I really advise to others and to myself is that when I'm hiring someone new, if I really like him or her, I try to work with them 1 or 2 days on some small project or some task. And if there's some chemistry, then yeah, I make hires much easily because it's much harder to fire someone than to hesitate to hire someone and yeah, move to the next one.
I think it will be a useful information for the ones who want to work with you. We have another question.
Sure.
Do you think that AI can actually automate the education and make it customizable for the students?
Okay, we are working on AI in education for 2 years already. And my vision here is that AI can dramatically improve education, but I don't think that it can fully change it in near future, like 20, 25 years minimum. So what I mean is that AI can be as like Google Maps for teachers. So maybe you write from one place in a city into another one. You may know the direction, but still Google Maps or Wise can help you to navigate, right? And at the end, final decisions are made by you where you will go. But advice from these digital solutions, let's call them, can help you dramatically. While if you are new to the city, it can save you a lot of time and really get you to the right direction, right? From one place into another. So what I mean is that for average or less than average teachers, AI can be the main recommendation part to base their approaches to students. While for best teachers, it can be just useful. They will make some final decisions, maybe a little bit different than what AI will suggest them. But even for them, AI can be very helpful. So right now, even in Loopy AI, based on data, we are giving the actionable recommendations to teachers. For example, we can say that someone in the class is underperforming in particular topic, and maybe he or she needs additional attention in Pythagorean theory, for example. Also, we can say that whole class is underperforming compared to other classes, and maybe this topic should be explained once again. So it's really actionable and really works because when we compare the classes with this kind of recommendations available to teachers, to others, to the classes who doesn't have this opportunity, teachers who are using our AI are outperforming by 10, 15% already. And we hope to increase these percentages dramatically in the near 1 or 2 years.
I guess it was an answer to this question too. Do you mentor other startups? And if you do, maybe you can share a little bit.
Yes, I do, but I really try to keep them like 1 or 2 per simultaneously. So yeah.
And what is your maybe technique or practice, like how you are working with them? Can you share something?
Sure. Honestly, like chemistry is very important here as well. So what I mean is that there can be great founder, but yeah, me and him or her can't have the like right chemistry. So finding the right mentor for you is important. And if there is some chemistry, main thing for mentor is probably to try to uh, advise to new founders and avoid some mistakes they would made if they will try themselves. But okay, it's a quite hard question. Honestly, it's very case sensitive in my opinion. But at the end of the day, what I think is that there are some mistakes that should be made by founders, because even if you, for example, when I mentioned hiring, I was advised in my early days that if you consider firing someone, do it as soon as possible, so fail fast. And I was, when I was advised this way, I knew that the right approach is probably to fire someone as soon as possible, but I postponed some tweaks, some different approaches can help. And after like 6 months or maybe a little bit more, at the end, I still fired them, right? So these kind of mistakes are the mistakes which probably you will anyway make, and probably that's okay. But there are some mistakes that are for sure avoidable, and probably one of the main things for mentors is to advise these kind of things, and also help with connections, right? So established founders or certain entrepreneurs or some managers from corporate world have much more connections in different domains, and have connecting new founders to right connections is one of the main things mentors should do, in my opinion.
Thank you very much.
You're
I
welcome.
think we're out of questions now.
And thank for all the information. I think it's very useful for everybody, especially from Georgian perspective.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Now we have to end. Yeah. Now we end session and have a break. And after this, we are coming back with Katharina, who will talk. Who will gonna wait for your feedback and tell you and talk about the homework he gave yesterday.
Bye.
Bye.